Good afternoon. My name is Heather Schultz. I'd like to welcome you to the Women's Summit hosted by the Young Professionals Committee. Thank you for joining us. I hope that by now most of you have learned that navigating the conference platform is simple, but I'd like to share a basic overview for anyone who might not be familiar with the tabs. There are 5 tabs on the right side of your screen. There's a chat tab. You can post comments to share with other attendees by using the chat tab. Next one is the question tab. We encourage you to communicate with the speaker and fellow attendees. You can ask questions by clicking on the question tab and typing in your question. There's also a poll tab. If the speaker decides to launch a poll, you can find them here. This is an interactive tab where you can select an answer from the polls listed. There is a people tab. You can view what other attendees in today's session are by clicking on the people tab here. And then finally, there's a files tab. Currently, we don't have any files or handouts for this program, but if we did, they would be there. Should you experience any technical difficulties during this session, please visit the virtual help desk, which appears in the lobby. Finally, I'd like to introduce the moderator for today's session, Ashley Metz. Ashley is a graduate of SUNY Ranger School, where she earned an associate's degree in surveying technology, and Siena College in Latham, where she earned her Bachelor's of Arts degree in environmental studies. Ashley is currently a survey technician with MJ Engineering and Land Surveying PC, located in Clifton Park, New York, and is working towards acquiring her New York State Land Surveyor's license. Now I'm going to turn everything over to Ashley.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel here today. Like Heather said, my name is Ashley, and I'm going to be moderating the panel today. Our goal is to highlight the successful women in our field and discover how they started in their careers, as well as discuss any challenges they've faced and overcome, and what they would like to change in the future to open up land surveying to other individuals. And we're going to start off today by inviting each panelist to introduce themselves. Panelists, please be sure to include the organization that you work for, the region of the state that you come from, the number of years that you've been a land surveyor, and a brief explanation of what your company or you focus on. Brie, I'm going to have you kick it off.
Okay, I'm Brie Strom. I'm with Mazer Consulting, which will soon be known as Colliers Engineering and Design. I work in the Capital District. I started in the field in about 1999, and I was licensed in 2006. And did I miss one of your categories that you asked about?
I think the state, part of the state you're from.
I couldn't hear that.
Sorry, the part of the state that you work in.
Oh, I'm in the Capital District, but we work.
Okay.
I work all over, but physically located in the Capital District.
Thank you so much, Christine. How about you?
Hi, I'm Christine Gayron. I am president of GDB Geospatial, also a new name that is about to be announced, so you'll all get a little sneak peek on that. I work on Long Island and New York City area. We also have an office near Rochester, and I travel there often to work up there. I have been in the field for 21 years. I've been licensed since 2010, and our company focus is all things geospatial. And I think what's a little more interesting is that we do not focus on anything else. We're not multidisciplinary in engineering or architecture. We're focused on geospatial surveying.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Ashley. Hi, I'm Jen Reed. I started working in full-time in 1989. I'm not going to tell you the years. I'm just going to tell you the year, and you can figure out the numbers in your head. So I started working full-time in 1989, and I got my license in 1999. I became a principal of Beatty & Watson Surveying and Engineering in 2001, and I became the president in 2016. But I have been in the field of surveying my whole life because my dad's a surveyor, and so it's just kind of been part of my life. We are in Putnam County. We're part of Westchester Putnam, just north of New York City. And oh gosh, our region's very special because we are very close to the city and we're very close to the country. So we do a lot. We do mostly big projects, big site plan projects. We do the topos for them and get them ready and put them through the planning process.
Thank you so much. You can see that we have a wealth of knowledge here to pull from today, and we're going to have a good discussion. A few housekeeping items. I think if you do have a question, if you could direct all your questions to that second tab that's specific for questions, that would be great to help me keep everybody, in line, and we'll definitely address your question if one comes up. And we do hope that you have questions and you've brought questions here today. But let's begin. I have a few questions for these ladies. And the first one, I think everybody kind of covered already, but we'll go over it again. How long did it take you to get your professional license? Whether it be from your very first internship or from your first time that you started your first career as a technician. Jennifer, can we start with you?
Sure. I went to Iona College and I did not plan on being a surveyor. So right after I graduated, I started working at Beatty & Watson and in 1989, and I ended up getting my license 10 years later, 1999. And I had no formal education. It was all on the job and from life experience. And I think that answers your question.
It does. Yes, it does. Let's go with Christine now.
So I went to college, majored in geology. I thought I was going to be an earth science teacher. And like a month into student teaching, I was like, no way, teaching is not for me. So I kind of didn't know what I was going to do then. My stepfather saw an ad in the paper for this civil engineering and land surveying firm that needed GIS specialists. So I responded to that ad and pretty much begged for a job because I had taken one class in GIS. And they were like, but what are we going to do with a geologist? I'm like, no, I like maps, I swear. And so that was in 2000, and I've been with the same company ever since. It took me 10 years to get licensed. My geology degree did not count for any education credit with the New York State licensing office, so it was all experience. So I applied after 8 years. They told me go back and get one more year of experience with a little, and they told me what to focus on. I got the one more year. Then I was approved to sit for the test, and I took the tests in 2010 and got licensed at the end of the year.
Very cool. It's strange that they wouldn't take any of that credit, but I'm glad you ended up and you persevered. Brie, let's go with you. How long did it take you?
I also didn't go to school for surveying, so I was bouncing around a little bit after college, not really knowing what to do, and I thought I might want to try drafting, and so I got an entry-level surveying job in 1999, and I took a community college class in CAD, and so that's the point at which I started working full-time. And then I was in North Carolina at the time, so the process was a little bit different. Again, my education didn't help, but I think I was able to sit for the fundamentals. I think the timing was such that you could sit for the fundamentals exam at 6 years, and at 7 you could take the LS exam. And I sort of was on the gun and jumped in and did that. The process, the application process in North Carolina isn't nearly as stringent as it is in New York. So I got my license in 2006 there, and then I moved up to New York. And by the time I applied in New York, I already had 10 years under my belt, and they let me sit the first go round.
Very good. Very good. Well, it looks like I have a few more years to go before I get there. But I've been working in land surveying since I was in high school. I actually started as an intern in high school, but I've only been working towards my professional license for about 3 years. But I guess my second question gets led right into, from what we've been talking about, is what helped each of you get to where you are today? And what advice would you offer to those that wish to follow in your footsteps and get their professional license? Christine, it sounded like you had a little bit of a bump of help to get into the surveying career. Would you like to start first?
Sure. So yes, I started as a technician. I was doing field and office work for it was actually Verizon projects. Verizon was putting in a lot of conduit, and they needed base mapping, and then we would design conduit. So I started as a technician, and I just worked my way up. I was in a small company, and there was a lot of opportunity. I feel like in a small company, anybody who can help in any way, like it's all welcome. There's no like, this is your job, that's your job. It's like, wear as many hats as you can. So there was a lot of opportunity. So I would say, like, I was surrounded by good people and good mentors. I mean, Greg DeBruin gave me tons of opportunity. He just kept whatever I could take on, he would throw at me. And I also think that getting involved with associations like NYSAPLS and ASCE, and going to professional dinners, really getting involved and getting to know people is how you find opportunity. So I really believe it's about finding opportunity and knowing the right people, and you have to at the same time work hard and know your stuff. So it's a combination of all that stuff, and that worked out for me. But definitely like seizing opportunity and surrounding myself with great people helped me get where I am.
That's a really good point about wearing many hats. I think that's something that everybody can take advice from. Mm-hmm. Brie, how about you? Can you answer that question? Brie, can you hear me?
No, now I can. I couldn't hear you at all. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Can you speak to that question at all? Did you get the question?
I did hear I heard the question way back. Basically, what helped along the way was the question.
Yes.
And I think like Christine, it's just having. I mean, I guess it's luck of the draw. I had great mentors, and my dad's a surveyor too, so I didn't know. I've found people are always willing to answer questions. Surveyors love to talk about surveying. So if you are willing to ask those questions, chances are you're willing to get help, and yeah, be willing to take advantage of whatever opportunities present themselves to you. But yeah, I really had some great mentors along the way who were willing to help me out whenever I needed, and you just keep asking and try to understand a little bit better each time, and pretty soon you're able to make those decisions yourself, or figure out how to proceed without that help. But that was my experience.
Excellent, thank you. Jen, would you speak to this as well?
Sure. Yeah, sure. They're right. Both of them are right. I was going to say the same thing. Great mentors has been a huge help. I mean, I had my father, Glenn Watson. I had my partner, Steve Miller. I had Brie's father, Peter Meisler. So I had some really not only great mentors, but great surveyors in my life. And so, and honestly, not one of them ever looked at me as if I was anything different than a great person and there was no difference being a woman. They didn't think that I couldn't do anything ever. They thought I could do everything. And so having that behind you just makes all the difference in the world.
That's awesome. And actually, you guys are providing me perfect segues into every question. So you guys, I picked my panel well. Personally, up to this point, I have really enjoyed my career as a land surveyor. But I admit that I have been really insecure at some points in my career. When I've doubted my own skills and my own knowledge, and I've experienced something that I've recently learned actually has a name, and it's called imposter syndrome. Now, for those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's a pattern of behavior where people doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent fear that they will be exposed as a fraud, regardless of their accomplishments or their experience. My question is, what advice do you have for anybody experiencing imposter syndrome or just a lack of confidence in general? Jennifer, can you start us off?
Yeah, I had to think about this a lot, and I think one of the biggest things that has helped me along the way is being with other professional women. Didn't matter if it was in this profession or not, but being with other professional women, they have the same struggles, and then you just talk it out, and they'll tell you, you're great. No, you did this, and they'll kind of remind you what things that you do, and you always remind them. So having the back and forth, and also talking about your struggles with them, and realizing, oh, that's normal. That's okay. You can have struggles and still be doing very well. So that's been my experience, and that's what's helped me.
Very good, very good. It's good to hear. Brie, can you speak to that as well?
I mean, I think I was surprised that when I mentioned to people that this question, and I had a little bit of imposter syndrome deciding to join this panel, like, oh, what do I have to offer this? But I think it's universal. I don't think it's just women. But I was surprised that I thought that was a universal term. I didn't know that everybody didn't know that. But I think people, I think it is universal, and I think, discussing it helps. And I also think just like paying attention to the people that you're with and realizing, their strengths and weaknesses, and realizing, you recognize their strengths, and at the points when they don't, you can turn that on its head and realize, okay, the same thing is happening for me. Just because I'm struggling in this point, doesn't mean that, I'm a complete flop everywhere else, or, you can see it happening to them too, and turn it back on its head. And really, you want, the people who don't occasionally feel that, they're never your favorite people. So, it's like, accept that you're going to feel that way, power through it, and, you'll be okay.
I really like that response. Christine, can you talk to this as well, to add anything?
Yeah, my main answer to this is to get out and network and talk to people. But Brie just said something that really sparked an idea that I want to convey, and then something I've learned from working with my staff and other professionals. People are much more critical of themselves than other people are of you. So like, you're your biggest critic. So recognize that. And also, it's, for most people, it's harder to take a compliment than to take criticism. So this is something that I've learned just doing like workshops with my team, and they're like, wait, we have to like write down feedback about each other, like we have to criticize each other. I'm like, well, it's more like suggestions. And so they're all worried about criticizing each other, but then when it comes time to give the feedback, you can see people more uncomfortable taking the compliments than the criticism. So I think that and that breaking those things down helps people deal with themselves and the people around them. And so my advice for this is to get out and talk to people. Like a lot of what I'm going to say throughout the panel today is like, you got to get out, you got to get involved, you have to talk to people, because the more you learn from other people, the more you learn about yourself. And the possibilities and the opportunities that are out there, and you gain confidence with every little interaction, or you gain knowledge of what else you could be doing.
Yeah, I think that talking about it is a really good point. And I want to stay on this topic for a second because I think it's important. how often, when you were starting out, did you feel that you didn't know what you were doing, or felt that you needed to talk to somebody about what you were doing before you felt confident enough to move forward with what you were doing? Christine, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would say all the time, and it's still happening. It's never going to go away because you're always going to be, like, as you progress, you're going to learn more and you're going to take on more. You're going to be exposed to more challenges. And the challenges will always be there, and you will always be going to other people that you think know more than you, because they do. And it is a good resource. So, I think that people who admit what they don't know and ask questions, they gain credibility and integrity and respect from the people that they ask, because it's a really good trait to know what you don't know.
Right. Jennifer, can you add to that at all?
I want to totally agree with her, and I want to say that I am constantly trying to push myself, push, because you know what? Maybe somebody's never going to tell you did a great job, but you got there. So, you just got to keep going. And you're always going to, if you're pushing yourself, it's always going to be uncomfortable. I mean, it just is. But how are you going to grow if you don't? You just got to go for it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think these are all really good points, and Brie, I'm hoping you can bring something else to this conversation as well.
I don't know. Those are some pretty good points already covered. I agree that, it happens all the time, and there's nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with, if you are feeling uncertain, bounce the idea around. It's not that means that you need somebody else to answer the question for you, but just go ahead and accept that positive feedback of, yeah, that makes sense to me, that. And that's what it happens, as you get more confident in whatever it is you're doing, you'll still have doubts, and more you're able to say, okay, this makes sense to me, instead of, well, what do you think? How should I do this? It's present the solution and get a little bit of positive feedback. Yeah, that's the way you should handle that. That sounds good. And, I don't know if that's adding anything that anybody already didn't say, but.
I think anything that anybody can comment about is going to be helpful. I think we're going to move on to our next question, but I really liked all of your advice, and I think it's a good point that Brie made, that maybe it is a more known subject than I had known about, but it is said that about 70% of the population at some point experiences imposter syndrome. So I think, like everybody here has said, it's really important to talk about it. And I know it's more of a female-driven idea to open up and talk about things, but I have felt much more secure in my own work, knowing that everybody else started out insecure. It's okay to be insecure. You just have to push past it like everybody. Our fourth question takes a bit more of a difficult track. And my question is, how could somebody retain their credibility and integrity while working in an environment that challenges change without being sidelined or branded as a troublemaker? Jennifer, can you speak to this?
I think, honestly, I think you're just going to have to deal with the fact that you might be labeled a troublemaker. I mean, you might not, but you have to get your point across. If it's something that's important to you, you have to get your point across. There's no getting around that. Speak your mind. Okay, so maybe you get some backlash. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's the best idea in the world. But you're not going to know until you get your point across. If you don't say anything, you'll never know.
I think that's a good point. Christine, can you talk about this?
Yeah, I had to unmute there. I think that So I've definitely heard something. This is the one thing I feel like I never feel like I was ever held back because I'm a woman. But I have observed that when a woman is when a person is direct, right? If you're direct, if a man is direct, he's confident. If a woman is direct, she's a bitch. So that is something I've observed, and obviously not everyone feels that way, but it's definitely something that happens. And if there's one thing I need to complain about to the society about and being held back, that's my one complaint. That, you know, just because we're being direct doesn't mean we should be labeled a troublemaker or bitchy. But so that being said, I think the way to combat it, if it could possibly happen, is to know your stuff, right? You whatever you're talking about, like you've got to know, you've got to have the right knowledge and have the facts and understand the situation and be communicative. And so knowing your stuff and doing the right thing, and like, I'm trying to do the right thing here, but this is an issue that needs to be dealt with. So use terms like, help me to understand why it's this way, or let me, can I introduce an idea that might help and be solutions focused, right? Like you've got an issue, you want a solution. So I think that knowing your stuff and communicating effectively will definitely combat being labeled as a troublemaker or sidelined. You know, you've got to maintain that you know your stuff. People will respect that.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Brie, can you talk on this point at all?
I think, like Jennifer said, you know, you have to risk being a troublemaker sometime if there's a, you know, if something is important. You know, certainly in, I don't know, I guess it depends on what the situation is. And I don't know if your question, was the question to, you know, being sidelined, or was the question about just work in general, I guess? I mean, I feel like I handle it differently. Like, I don't have any trouble if I feel certain about something professionally. I don't have any trouble defending that position. Like, if there's sketchy stuff going on in office dynamics or something like that, then I probably am less pushy about it. But, you know, I think, like Christine said, I haven't seen a lot of direct, you know, direct discrimination or anything like that. But there definitely are, there are attitude differences, and you see them. And, you know, men are never afraid to be troublemakers. Like, if they've got something to say, they say it. And it is a little, you know, there's a different expectation for women. So it's hard to navigate. It can be a little hard to navigate, but you got, you know, if you know, professionally, particularly if you know what's going on, stand your ground. Don't be afraid to be a troublemaker. What are the consequences? I mean, I guess they could be bigger. I guess I've been fortunate that the consequences of, you know, being a professional troublemaker are low, because I'm not going to, you know, take a stand that, you know, that I don't feel strongly about based on my knowledge. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the overarching goal here is just to say, know your stuff, and when you feel really confident in it, stand your ground. And I think that doesn't just go for women. I think that goes for any person, and especially any young professional, is to, you know your stuff and speak up when you feel like you have enough knowledge. But also, something I've taken from learning, and I've never experienced as well in my career, any real feeling of, you know, I've never really been discriminated against. But I definitely have felt that if you are respectful and you know your stuff, people will listen to you more. You can't just go out there and, you know, be a know-it-all and say it's my way or the highway. You have to be open to having a discussion. But does anybody else have anything to add to this conversation? Because I think this is important.
I hear questions popping up. I don't know if they're about.
I think we're getting a lot of positive comments from this particular.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I can add is that, like, if you are somebody who's dependable, 99% of the time, then the 1% that you have an issue, people are going to listen to you. So just work on that consistency of, knowing your stuff and doing the right thing. And then when you need to be heard, people will listen.
I think that's an excellent point. I guess moving on then, I guess my last question for you, actually my fifth question for you guys will be, when did you feel really confident in yourself? I guess my question is, when did you first feel like you had made a major accomplishment? And what was it that sparked that? Was it when you had gotten like a good job done on it and you hadn't had any poor reviews on it, or whatever it be? Just let me know what that was. I think it would help everybody to know, when can you start feeling confident in yourself? Let's go with Brie first.
Oh, still waiting. Years after
Well,
Great.
college. Can you hear me?
you gotcha.
Okay, sorry. It's something. I had a glitch. And having decided to do this, to pursue it, was very satisfying. Like I don't know if there was something about that there was a particular instance, but it definitely suited me. I was enjoying learning. I was enjoying every aspect of. At that point, I was making no money, and it was my first day. I was setting irons to 96 degrees, and it was still interesting to me, and so. I think the opportunity to learn and then just continuing like that's still going. You're still learning, and I'm still enjoying it, and I guess that I was grasping it helped. I can't think of a particular instance where I was like, oh, this is the right thing. It's just a gradual building of, okay, this all meshes with me.
Very good. Very good. Jennifer, can you talk about this a little?
Yeah, sure. I had when I you pre-screened us a little bit with the questions, so I had to really think about this one too. This was a tough one because I don't think I had a single win or a single. There's lots of little wins along the way, along with lots of little losses, and you have to just be thankful for all those little wins because they just keep building you up. You keep going up there, and just keep remembering all of them. But I did have a little, I guess, kind of aha moment where I guess I realized, oh yeah, I'm the boss, So it was when the first time I had and because we're a women's summit, I'm going to say it but I had a male and a new employee, and it was a male, and he looked up to me, and I could see in his eyes for the first time. I mean, I've been working in this since the 80s, so I could see in his eyes there was no surprise or shock that he had a female boss in this industry. And frankly, I couldn't even believe it, because usually I would get somebody looking at the guy next to me, or it wouldn't be me they were looking at, and this guy just looked at me and said, well, what do you want me to do? And I was like, okay, let's go. And I specifically remember that because I felt like in general things have changed a lot, and it is even though we've got a ways to go, it's a lot better. There's a lot more acceptance of women in the industry and as bosses.
That's awesome. I never even thought of that aspect being, you know, at a more entry-level position, but it's definitely interesting to think about somebody who is in charge of a crew or something like that, and how people in general would react to that as well. Christine, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I completely agree with Brie and Jen that I thought this was such a hard question because it is very difficult to think of like one defining moment. It's more the buildup of tons of little successes that make you feel like you're a success. I mean, it could be compliments from your coworkers and bosses. It could be the first time you got a raise, the first time you got your own office. Getting the letter that I passed the test and I was licensed, like that was huge. You know, letters after your last name, like that was really exciting. And then sometimes when the boss comes to you and asks questions, it's like, wow, they really value me. And then there's also life successes, like I was able to buy a house, and you know, those things all contribute to success, because we're not just trying to be successful land surveyors, we're trying to be successful people and bring up people around us. So I totally agree that it's just a sum of many little parts. And then we never, you know, I think when we were talking about the imposter syndrome before, it's not like we feel like we're done, we're successful. There's always more to do and more challenges to take on.
Yeah.
I see a lot of nodding heads there. Does anybody else want to speak to that?
I just wanted to, you wrote these questions, Ashley, so I wanted to ask you if there was I wanted to ask you to answer it if there was, something that it seemed like a leading question for me. So I want to turn it back on you.
Put me on the spot here. I think now seeing it from your perspective, I thought I was writing a very quick throwaway, it'd be easy to respond to and you guys wouldn't have to think about it. But I really think after listening to you all, you are right. It is a buildup of, smaller things. But I think my big one, and I think it's just because I have less experience than you all, was the first time I walked into my boss's office having completed a task without asking him how to do it, and having already completed it the exact way that he told me he wanted me to do it. And I think, it's something so basic, but knowing the way that your boss thinks was really an accomplishment in my eyes. I think this is important too to talk about a little bit more, because I think for me personally, the goal of this was to talk about our successes. But with successes comes, there are failures, and I don't want to talk about failures the whole time. But how did you overcome something that either you actually did fail at, or that you personally felt like you failed at? Brie, can we start with you?
I'm frozen again.
Oh, there we go. I think we got you.
Was I supposed to go first? I'm sorry.
If you wouldn't mind. No, you're good.
Okay. Everybody makes mistakes. And as you get into this, the more you look, the more you see other people's mistakes too. So, I mean, you just need to own up to what's gone wrong and see how to correct it. You can't wallow in it. You can't hide in it. It's like, just take a moment, be like, oh, that happened, and then figure out how it's going to get fixed. Like that's all you can do. And then also remember, like, it happens, I can't think of, if you work with other surveyors, you see maps from other surveyors in the area, and, you always find something. No, not on every map, but I've never seen something where I've never seen a mistake out of this survey, or I've never questioned a decision of this survey, or like you dig into this stuff and you're like, okay, I understand what happened here. I don't know that I agree with that. Not every time, plenty of times you just trust it, but you realize that different decisions are being made all the time, and if you're not happy with the decision you've made, you move forward from it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Christine, I see you shaking your head over there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's right. It's like we chose a profession where you have to be detail oriented. There's a lot of there's a huge technical aspect, so that's error prone. And then, so you've got to deal with those mistakes, and so if we're calling those the mistakes, then you got to learn from it. So everything Brie said about how to deal with the mistake, own up, fix it, and then figure out how not to make that mistake again. And then so what I was going to say about our profession is that we've got that technical aspect where we can have failures, and then we also have to run a business and deal with people, and there's other aspects of business that have nothing to do with property loans that we've got to learn. So there's gonna be mistakes made all along the way, and a learning experience. So yeah, failures. I mean, it was like we were saying before. You got to keep moving forward, and you got to. I think that something that we do at our company is how do we put a system in place to make sure this doesn't happen again, or to prevent it from happening again, or to catch it before it happens.
That's a good point. Jen, do you have anything else to add to this? I think you might.
It's like we all got together beforehand and answered the questions because it's true, but maybe it's just true. Maybe that's just really what it is. The only other thing that I mean, because they made such great points, I'm not going to say the same things, but the only other thing that I want to say that has really helped me is don't bury your mistake. Just try and get to it immediately. Maybe you need a night to sleep on it, but don't just bury it, because it gets worse in your mind, and you're always better off just facing it. Half the time I think, oh my God, I don't want to call this person because there's some kind of error. And I call them, they're like, oh yeah, I knew about that. And honestly, I built it up in my mind more than it was worth. So I've pretty much always found that an immediate stop worrying about it, deal with it, and you're 99.9% going to be better off for it.
That's awesome. I think I'm seeing a common thread here of just own up to it and move on. I think if that's the takeaway of this question, I think that's it. And I'm glad we got that. That certainly helps me. I guess I'm going to recycle back to my first question or my second question, but really nail the point home of if you were starting out right now, or if you had somebody who was starting out right now and you had all the experience that you have now, what's one thing that you would tell them to set them off in the right path? Jennifer, let's start with you.
Well, I think we probably said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Just, don't let the mistake stop you. Keep pushing yourself. So what if you make a mistake? We all do. It just is.
Very good. Brie, how about you? Can you speak to that? What would you tell somebody that's just starting off in their career?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot to add on this one. I think what I would say is definitely lean on mentors and learn all you can from everyone you can, and really, respect other people's perspectives can really help you, learn. And even if you, I don't know. Eye with everybody, but learn from other people's perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. Christine, now to you.
I would advise people starting out to get involved, to get more involved, get involved with things like, presentations like this, associations like this. There's tons of your regional, they need help, they need involvement, and then other professional organizations. I think I feel like I should have gotten involved sooner in those things and work on relationship building as much as you work on your technical capabilities, because that's really the success. And and another one, something I tell my kids all the time, is learn how to deal with the bullshit. There are things you have to do. They're not the things you want to do. They're not the fun things. And if you put them off, they're never going to go away. Like, deal with that. Do for my kids, it's like, just do your homework. Like, you'll spend a half hour arguing with me about how you don't want to do your homework, and like, you could have been done 10 minutes ago. So, definitely like prioritize. And the other thing is read books on self-improvement. That's something I didn't do when I was younger, but I do it now, and I get a little bit out of every self-help book that I read. Some of them I don't like. Some of them I read 1 or 2 chapters, and I'm like, oh, I don't like the way they're explaining this, and I find something else. But there are some that have really great takeaways for your whole life, your career, your life, and how to deal with people and relationship building.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think just to highlight, actually, on the end of your comment there, we do have a suggestion for somebody to read. If you haven't been paying attention to the chat, it looks like we've got a suggestion there. So if you want to take a look at that one, I'm sure if you've read it, I'm sure you can.
Yes, that actually gave me the confidence to say the F word. I mean, the S word. I'm assuming you're talking about what Lawrence O'Connor wrote. Scott Adams has a chapter in the Dilbert Principle about the secret of success for women in business. The answer: swearing at work. It is a comedy book, yet in management, I have seen aggressive women succeed, and yes, swearing was involved. So I feel like I'm an advocate for this theory, especially since at our last team building session up in my Honey Falls office, I was given the AF award for saying the F word. And so it's not everybody, be true to yourself, but I think it's interesting, and it's definitely comical.
Very good. Very good. I heard somebody nodding, or I should have said I heard somebody, saying yes to one of Christine's comments about reaching out at a earlier step to other people and joining the conferences. Do you think that being able to communicate effectively, and especially being able to network between land surveyors, do you think that's important? And if so, what do you think we gain from having those conversations? Jennifer, let's start with you.
Oh, we gain everything. I mean, we really gain a perspective on our own, on our own businesses, and we gain a perspective about how other people, when you're running your own business and you're by yourself, or you're in your little bubble, you think you're the only one. You're never the only one. Everybody. We're all alike, and we all should be helping each other. We should be all unifying and making the profession better. It helps to talk those things out and talk about the problems and talk about successes and learn little tips and tricks from each other, because we're in the real world. We're not books. We're all in the real world, dealing with real clients, dealing with real employees. So that it just makes all the difference in the world to network with people and talk with other people in the profession.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Brie, do you want to put in anything there?
I mean, I think I've found it, personally satisfying to connect with other surveyors, to, just to have, I guess to just get some other perspectives, and also just, to connect with like-minded people even helps. You know, at work there's work to do, you know, and yeah, you do develop connections with your coworkers, but you know, you are very directed. Like you're at, you know, you have to stay focused at work. So it's nice to take a step back to make those connections and understand, you know, what other people are experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. Christine, you've talked about it before, but did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, just that what I want to add is that, you know, sometimes we don't, if we get paid by the hour, we don't get paid to do these extra things. And, you know, it's a lot of volunteer work to get involved. But I think I definitely feel like it's worth it. It's worth it for yourself and for your career and for, like who was saying, talking to like-minded people. It's definitely something that's going to help you get ahead. Even if you're not getting paid for those hours where you're doing businessy things or work something for your job, it's really beneficial in ways you can't measure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my last question before I open it up, and it does look like we have a couple of questions in the questions tab, which is really good. And I'd like to see if anybody else out in our chat wants to add any questions in there while we discuss this last question I have for us. But if you were introduced to this in high school or any other lower education, do you think that more people would join the surveying field? I think it's important that we start working towards introducing not only surveying, but other, you know, trades like jobs into the education system early. And I definitely would like to talk about just getting other jobs out into the schooling early. So do you think that at a high school level, we should be going into schools and we should be trying to interact with people making their life choices at that age? Christine, let's start with you.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know what land surveying was until I was doing it. And, you know, it's definitely, that's just an absolute yes. We need younger people to know that land surveying is a profession, just like being a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse. There are paths to those professions and there are paths to land surveying, and we need to educate them on what it is we do, because it's I think a lot more people would be interested in it.
Yeah, I agree. Brie, it sounds like you had some experience from a younger age, but do you think that our career would benefit from being into society at an earlier age?
All right, I'm having trouble hearing, but I think I got the gist. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I mean, of course, there's certainly surveying is suffering from, you know, it's an aging profession, and how do we get new people in? And certainly, I wish kids had more exposure to it. But the fact is, there's a lot of professions that's probably the case. Like, I don't know how you get, you know, fair distribution for all professions to, you know, to get that idea in the kids' heads. I don't know exactly how, you know, how that would go. Certainly, you know, everybody always jokes about, you know, when are you going to use math? And we use trig all the time, you know, and like, I think maybe if the school systems were able to say, oh, this is useful in these areas and this is useful in these areas, like maybe that would be a way to, you know, to drive home, like, all right, some of these are practical skills, and some, you know, sometimes they're abstract. Most of you won't use them, but, you know, the ones of you that like it, hey, these are some places that it's going to apply. So yeah, they're definitely.
I think that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's a fantastic point. I personally starting to learn what land surveying could be through my dad, and he took one course in college, and he liked it, but he never went anywhere with it. But my uncle was my math teacher when I had trig, actually, and so I got good at it because I had to. And so I really did learn to enjoy that type of work. By no means am I good at it, but I enjoy it and I work towards it. But I think this was something that came up quite recently, actually, that we need to introduce these types of things at an education level, like you're saying, Brie, is that we can inform teachers to inform students. And I think that's a really good point. Jennifer, did you have anything for us?
Certainly. I mean, it would definitely be, we'd all benefit if it was introduced earlier. And it is really good, just kind of a really interesting profession, because it if you think about it, it combines history and math, which are two things that really don't go together in school. They're like, you're either a history person or you're a math person. And then it combines going outside, being outside, the outdoors, So I think a lot of people would be a lot more interested if they actually knew what we did, if they actually understood it earlier. I think there'd be a lot more people coming into it because people love those things.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. You probably would have less kids standing out waving at the instrument if they understood what it was.
Yeah.
But that finishes off my questions for all of you, but it does look like we have some questions in the chat. So let's go over and see what we have there. I'm going to try and read them. They're a little bit farther away from me, but I'm going to read them out here. We'll start off. We had a question from Dorothy saying, how did you carve out time for applying for and studying for the exam? Did you just fit it in, or did you deliberately push family care obligations onto your partner? Christine, let's start with you.
So I actually got approved to sit for the test when I was pregnant with my third child. And I combined taking a leave of absence when he was born. I combined that leave of absence with studying. So I said, let me take a couple months off to take care of my babies, and I will study for the tests and I'll pass. And so I had about 4 months where all I did was take care of my family, and I carved out time to study. My husband was actually really good about, I would say, I need you to be on duty because I'm going to sit for 3 hours and study, or I'm going to go somewhere and study for 3 hours. So, so for me, I had so much on my plate that I actually stepped away from work to focus on the family and study for the test. But, I did see a lot of other people in my company studying for the test, and they did it a lot of time on the weekends. So it is a big time commitment, as Dorothy is mentioning.
Absolutely. Jennifer, how about you? Do you have anything to add to this conversation?
I didn't exactly hear the first part of the question, but I think you're just talking about working through having a family and getting your license, and I just did it. I had my husband helped take care of my child. We did it together. But at the time, he was the major breadwinner, and frankly, I had to take most of the responsibility. So I just did it. These questions sound funny to me in some way because I didn't think there was a choice. I just did it.
That's a good point. Brie, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I did. My son was 3 the first go round. And I don't entirely, I remember being up, I remember reading Yeah, I squeezed it in. I mean, there were times when, maybe I'd say, okay, I'm going to go to the library for the afternoon. I think I saved up, like I had a practice test, and I did all this studying, just around the edges of life. And then I had this practice test. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to disappear for the afternoon, and made my then husband watch our son. I don't know, I guess I didn't have an opportunity to do it any other way. So every once in a while I shoved responsibilities off, but mostly it was just, half hour here, half hour there, and made it work.
Get it while you can. That's great. That's great. Well, it seems like, and I assume this to be, it would probably be for the same side on, both male and female. It seems like that if you have a split down the middle, you take care of your half, you take care of my half. You can share responsibilities at times. So I think it's very good that you guys make the point of just, it needs to get done. It needs to happen one way or the other. We're just going to power through it. And I like that response. Mm-hmm. Looks like we have another question. And it comes from Caleb Winters. How do you think NYSAPLS and the regions can encourage more diversity in the land surveying profession? Does somebody want to take this one?
Well, I want to thank you for setting this up. I mean, it's true. There's just, we're in these in-person, there aren't a lot of women at the conferences. So I think any representation can help. I don't know what more they can do, to encourage it. But I think I think those of us who, if women step up and make our presence more known, I think it helps. But certainly it's not very racially diverse. There's not a lot of diversity in surveying is what it comes down to. And it's a problem because this isn't the demographics of your average surveyor aren't the demographics of the population at large, and that needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different diverse groups to pull from. So I think just in any, like you're talking about getting students involved, I think you need to just have the same approach as you would have to other groups. Christine, do you have anything else?
Yeah, it's really just about getting, how do you get any message out, right? You have to have listeners, and it's not an easy thing to gain interest in. I try to sit my kids down and tell them what I do. They don't want to know. They don't. They do not want to know. They have no interest. My son wants to major in engineering in school, in college, but he doesn't want to know what I do because he's going to use it to be a Navy SEAL. So, yeah, it's a tough audience, and but I think that it's already happening because, like Brie said, we're doing this panel. I'm reading in the questions and comments that, people are making the observation that there's already more diversity now than when they started their career. It's significant. And the young professionals are already coming up with programs and things we can do to get our profession, information about our profession out to younger children. So it's happening. It's just nothing is quick. Nothing is going to happen quick. It's a grassroots, brick by brick process that we can all touch a few people, but it's not something where we're going to get the whole world as an audience and tell them and they're not going to want to listen to us all at once. So it's a grassroots effort.
Right. Those are good points. How about you, Jennifer? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad that they both said that this panel has helped a lot. Even the comments on the side, which I have been reading, and they're all very positive and very much appreciated. And I think that's just helped me, and me want to grow and ask more women, ask any other group. It's just going to help everything. And so I guess I want to just point out that this panel really did make a difference to me. and I was scared to death to do it, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah, I was as well. When I first brought up the idea of doing something for women, my first idea was to just have an open discussion with women, not thinking this conference go around, maybe next year we would have, you know, a luncheon and all the women could come and meet one another and talk with one another. And I definitely think that going forward, that's something that we need to do, because I was excited about that idea. But then this panel idea was brought up and I was even more excited about that. So I really appreciate all three of you, you know, having the ability to come in and help me today. But it looks like we have a couple more questions. Another question from Dorothy saying, do you think as women, you are less risk adverse and better able to talk about what you don't know? And I actually had to look up risk adverse. And so if anybody else needs that little definition to kind of get us off in the right direction, it's risk adverse is the tendency of people to prefer outcomes with low uncertainty to those outcomes with high uncertainty. So I think this will be a good question. Brie, do you want to start us off?
I don't know. I mean, I think risk adversity is a I mean, I know some pretty risk adverse men and some, I don't know that it's a gender based issue really. I think but to the second part, I think that probably is true. I think, you know, there's not that women are more comfortable asking, but men are particularly uncomfortable admitting when they, you know, I don't think there's as much space for men to be uncertain about themselves as there are for women, possibly. I don't know. I haven't given this one much thought, but that's my gut response is that, you know, that, you know, that may be a weakness of men is that they have to present a front that women haven't traditionally been asked to present. And that therefore, you know, I mean, certainly it sounds like all of us have benefited from our mentors. And if, you know, if you are closed off to that, that's certainly going to be a hindrance only to you. Well, not only to you, to everything, you know, to the learning process, which then adds to the profession. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It never hurts to ask, as they say. Mm-hmm. Christine, how about you? What do you think?
I'm a terrible person to answer this question because I'm a risk taker. So I'm just going to say, I guess my answer is no. I don't think being a woman has anything to do with your risk taking or risk adversity. Yeah. I think it's like Brie said, it's more personal, you know, characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How about the question about being able to ask questions?
I guess the same thing. I think that I think I've worked with men and women, and it's more of a personality trait. Some people think they don't. Some people think they know and they don't ask, and you know they're criticized for that. But I've seen that with men and women. So I think that, you know, just to know that I think it's always a good idea to ask about what you don't know, admit what you don't know, and ask about it. So that would be my advice to anybody who's wondering whether it's okay to ask questions. It definitely is. I've never heard anybody say don't ask me questions.
Great. Jennifer, how about you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a men or women thing. It is definitely a personality thing, that's for sure. And I've usually found that when I ask questions, especially when I've often asked questions in front of big groups because, you know what, I just really didn't know the question, didn't know the answer. And as soon as I ask the question that nobody asked, everybody goes, oh yeah, I don't know that either. So, you know, maybe it's a stupid question, but most of the time, everybody else doesn't know the answer either. You know, and somewhat of it was.
Absolutely. You learn something, and that's the goal. It looks like we have one last question here, and that comes from, where did that come from? I can't find who asked it, but the question is, what do you see from your perspective to engage and motivate women to consider this profession? Jennifer, let's start with you.
I don't know, Ashley. I'm gonna defer to you because you started this panel. So I don't know. I think you just inspired a whole bunch of people today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that response. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I think we should build on the women who are into math. Women who like mathematics and the outdoors. I mean, that goes for men too, right? But that's our target audience. I think there are plenty of women out there who are like good at math but don't know what to do with it. They want to apply it, or like I always take the opportunity when I hear kids saying math is so dumb, I'm never going to use it. I'm like, actually, I use it all the time. Can I tell you how? And usually the answer is no, but well, we try.
Right.
Yeah, I think just
Brie,
representation, doing this, it was, I don't know that we have any audience. I don't know that this is an audience where we're preaching to the choir here, I guess is the point. I don't know that we're actually reaching outside of, outside of the community that's already aware of it. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. Is make these suggestions to the kids who might be receptive to it. And they're kids, so like you say, they're not that receptive ever. You can try, you have to try.
it certainly won't hurt to try. You can only try. But it looks like we're all wrapped up here. It looks like all of our questions have been answered. And if nobody else has any questions, I think we'll wrap up. I'd like to say to all three of you, like I said earlier, I really, really appreciated all of your time. And I think it was really important to have this conversation. And I hope that in the future, moving forward, we can, have more summits like this where we can get together with other women and try and see how women can put forward, the idea of land surveying to other groups. And I just want to remind everybody who was listening to this panel today that the goal of this panel was not to alienate any group, but support and highlight the female land surveying professionals, as well as promote an open conversation about equality in the workplace and job opportunities. And I hope we can better promote land surveying to the next generation of future land surveyors by using some of the advice that we heard here today. And I'd like to thank everybody for attending. And I hope you enjoyed our panel. And I hope you also enjoy your next class, which will be the last scheduled class of the 2021 NYSAPLS conference. So thank you from all four of us, and we look forward to seeing you all next year.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah. Thanks for all your hard work. Ashley, you made this easy for us. You really did.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you all. I feel like your whole conversation was very inspiring to the profession and all the attendees listening. So, and thank you to Ashley and the Young Professionals Committee for putting this together. I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of the conference and have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks, Heather.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick around and read the chat because I didn't get to read it all. And there's some really cool comments, so just before I leave the room.
That's
There
fine.
are some great comments. Some great comments
You
there.
guys did great. It was really, really good.
The one thing I would have brought a TV or a laptop closer to me because the TV is so far away and the words are so tiny.
Hard to see.
We're
still getting comments.
Any connection issues for all the sessions I've listened to, and now all of a sudden I'm like, Fine until on the spot. Oh.
This was the best part of the conference because it was personal. Like I so miss the personal interaction and I'm glad this platform has been great, Heather. Like you guys did an amazing job and I'm sure it was just as much work, if not more, than the in-person conference, but I just miss everybody and talking to people in person.
It honestly feels like more, but it's really good to hear. No, it's really good to hear that. And that is the best part of some of these, is being able to video chat with people and to see them that you didn't get to see because we're not in person. So
awesome. Still reading comments.
Yeah, they seem to still be coming.
Oh, listen, as soon as we tell kids we work with time travel and lasers, they're interested.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Oh, this is cool. Catherine O'Buckley, as a person that grew up in surveying, I never had the opportunity to see other women speak in the profession. I find it extremely refreshing and encouraging as a person that is looking to get their license within the next coming year.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, we reviewed the, I saw a scholarship application from her. I'm like, oh, I recognize that.
Yeah. She interned with us too.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Buckleys are great.
I noticed that. I can't actually remember if she got one because we had more applicants than scholarships to go around, but
I know she won the Shaw Scholarship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad she got something because I think I was torn. I think she's not she has another year, right? I feel like she had another year in school, and I was like, okay, we gave her one last year. We'll have another opportunity to next year. This one's graduating. We'll go ahead and.
That's awesome. All right, ladies, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to get to that last class.
Oh yeah, it's time. All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Ashley. Thank you, ladies.